They say life's a party. But what they don't tell you is sometimes the music stops, the lights come on, and you're left staring at a mess. That was me, standing amidst the wreckage of what I thought was a happy marriage. Our 10th anniversary bash was the epitome of perfection, a lavish affair where laughter flowed as freely as the champagne. My wife, Julia, was the belle of the ball, her smile as bright as the diamonds I'd gifted her. I was on top of the world, a self-made man who just clinched a deal that was the cherry on top of my already thriving business. Life was good, or so I thought. But soon after, things started to change. Julia, once the anchor of my hectic life, became distant. Her presence at home dwindled. Work meetings and girls' nights filled her calendar. I tried to brush it off as a phase. After all, we were both busy adults, right? Then came the day that turned my doubts into cold, hard reality. I stumbled upon her phone, buzzing with a new message. Curiosity, they say, killed the cat. In my case, it shattered my world. The texts I saw were not just friendly, they were intimate, laced with a familiarity that twisted my gut into knots. They were from some guy named Mark, a name I'd never heard before. Confronting Julia was like igniting a powder keg. She denied everything, her words sharp and accusing. I was being paranoid, she claimed, suffocating her with my insecurities. But the trust between us had cracked, and I couldn't just let it go. So, I did what any desperate, cornered husband would do. I hired a private investigator. It felt like a betrayal, a sordid step into a world I never thought I'd enter. Yet, I needed the truth, no matter how ugly it might turn out to be. As days turned into weeks, the pie fed me bits and pieces of Julia's secret life. Each report, each photograph was a hammer blow to the life I'd built. It wasn't just texts anymore. There were dinners, late-night rendezvous, and that look in her eyes that I thought was reserved only for me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, a man who prided himself on making smart, calculated decisions, completely blindsided in the most personal aspect of his life. I thought I knew her. I thought we were happy. But as the evidence piled up, I had to face the harsh truth. The woman I loved, the woman I'd built a life with, was a stranger. The day I got those photos from the pie was the day my world stopped spinning. There they were, glossy, undeniable proof of Julia's affair. Seeing her with another man was like a punch to the gut. I sat there, in my office, the pictures spread out on my desk like some grotesque collage, each one a betrayal. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what came next. I was at work, right in the middle of a meeting when I got served. Divorce papers, in front of my entire team. The look of pity in their eyes was almost as painful as the contents of those papers. Julia was going for the jugular, not just half of our assets, but full custody of our kids, too. It felt like I was in some twisted nightmare. I moved out of our family home, our sanctuary of over a decade, and into a cramped apartment that echoed with the silence of my new reality. The walls were bare, the rooms filled with the ghosts of my former life. Adjusting was an understatement. I was sleepwalking through a life I didn't recognize. Then came the divorce proceedings. You see, in our society, divorce isn't just between two people. It's a spectacle, and ours was no exception. Accusations flew, dirty laundry was aired, and whatever shred of privacy or dignity I had left was trampled under the public's watchful eye. I'd become that guy, the one people whispered about in the corridors. The worst part? The affair went public. Julia's once pristine social image was now tainted. The same society that once adored her, now shunned her. The irony of it was cold comfort to me. I had wanted justice, sure, but watching her fall from grace wasn't as satisfying as I'd imagined. It was just sad, a grim reminder of how far we'd fallen. The days blurred into one another, each bringing its own set of challenges. I was fighting a battle on all fronts: personal, professional, legal. But in this whirlwind of chaos, there was a strange sense of clarity. It was as if the storm had stripped away all the pretenses, leaving me with nothing but the raw truth of my situation. And somewhere in that truth, I began to find the strength to rebuild, piece by painstaking piece. You'd think that after a scandal like mine, the worst thing would be the heartbreak or the loneliness. But no, it was watching the empire I built from scratch crumble before my eyes. Clients I'd worked with for years, clients I'd called friends, vanished. Each email saying, "We're moving in a different direction," was a nail in the coffin of my once thriving business. The divorce wasn't just taking my marriage, it was taking my life's work. Just when I thought I'd hit rock bottom, Mike, an old college buddy, called me up. "I've got a proposition for you," he said. He'd been following my saga, and instead of turning away, he was reaching out. Mike had this crazy idea for a tech startup, something about revolutionizing the ways small businesses handle online marketing. It was risky, completely out of my comfort zone, but what did I have to lose? So I dove in. I poured every ounce of energy into this new venture. The long nights, the endless research, the constant pitching to skeptical investors. It was exhausting but exhilarating. There's something about building something from nothing that reignites a fire in you, a fire I thought Julia had extinguished. Slowly but surely, we started to gain traction. Our small team was like a family, each of us driven by our own reasons, united by the common goal of proving ourselves. We landed our first major client, then another, and then another. It was more than just a business succeeding, it was my comeback story. Meanwhile, karma was having its way with Julia. Her lover, the man she wrecked our family for, walked out on her, cited the scandal and her manipulative ways as his reasons. Part of me felt vindicated, sure, but another part, a part one didn't want to acknowledge, felt sorry for her. She was reaping what she'd sown, but the sight of someone you once loved hitting rock bottom is never pleasant. The success of the new venture was about more than just financial gain. It was a testament to resilience, a middle finger to every doubter, every whisper behind my back, every pitiful look I'd received in the past months. I wasn't just rebuilding my business, I was rebuilding myself. Sometimes, life gives you a second chance, but not in the way you expect. The day I won that court case over our shared vacation home, it wasn't just about the property. It was a symbol, a sign that maybe, just maybe, the tides were turning in my favor. It was a minor victory, but it felt like a watershed moment in the never-ending storm of my divorce. Around the same time, Julia's life seemed to be unraveling at the seams. Her financial woes were the talk of the town, quite the fall from grace for someone who once prided herself on her social status. Her so-called friends started distancing themselves, as if her misfortune was contagious. I won't lie, part of me felt a grim satisfaction seeing her get a taste of her own medicine. But life had more in store for me. My new business, which started as a desperate shot in the dark, landed a deal that was nothing short of a miracle. We secured a contract with one of the biggest names in the industry, catapulting us back into the limelight. From the ashes of my old life, I was rising, stronger and more determined than ever. Then, out of the blue, Julia reached out. She wanted to talk, to sort things out. Mistakes, misunderstandings, the words tasted bitter. I'd moved past the anger, but the scars were still there, raw and tender. I met her, yes, but the man she faced that day was no longer the one she left. I listened, more out of curiosity than anything else. Her pleas, once capable of swaying me, now fell on deaf ears. My focus was my children, my business, not the remnants of a love turned sour. It was a surreal experience, watching the woman who once held my heart now grasping at straws, trying to claw her way back into a life she'd willingly thrown away. But the bridges were burned, and I was not about to rebuild them for her to cross again. The fallout from her choices wasn't just legal or financial, it was social suicide. The same people who once flocked around her were now nowhere to be seen. She was left to face the consequences alone, ostracized from the world she once ruled. This chapter of my life wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about learning, growing, and accepting that some things, once broken, can never be put back together. It was a hard lesson, learned through tears and turmoil, but it was mine, and it had shaped me into who I was becoming. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. There's something about hitting rock bottom. It strips away all the pretenses, all the noise, and leaves you with what's truly important. For me, that was my kids. The day they told me they wanted to stay with me, not just for a weekend or a holiday, but for good, that was the day I knew I'd done something right amidst all the chaos. Their choice spoke volumes, more than any court ruling ever could. It was a bittersweet victory, though. They were seeking refuge from the storm their mother had created, and as much as I welcomed them with open arms, it pained me to see them caught in the crossfire of our broken marriage. Business-wise, things were looking up. We launched a product that was the first of its kind in the market, a real game changer. The buzz it created was unreal. We were not just back in business, we were making headlines. It felt like a vindication of all the late nights, the doubts, the risks. This success was more than financial. It was a testament to what you can achieve when you refuse to give up, no matter how many times life knocks you down. Meanwhile, Julia's world seemed to be crumbling faster than ever. The legal fees from our never-ending divorce battle were piling up, and her lavish lifestyle was no longer sustainable. I heard through the grapevine that she had started selling off her jewelry, designer clothes, remnants of a life she could no longer afford. It was a stark contrast to the life she'd chosen over our family. During this time, I met someone. Sarah was her name. Meeting her was like a breath of fresh air. She was everything Julia wasn't: kind, genuine, grounded. She didn't care about my money or my past. She saw me, the real me, not the tabloid version or the successful entrepreneur. We started dating, taking it slow. The kids liked her, which was all I could ask for. She brought a sense of normalcy, a sense of peace that had been missing from my life for far too long. Julia, on the other hand, was forced to downsize. The luxurious house we once called a home was no longer hers. Last I heard, she'd moved into a modest apartment, a far cry from the opulence she was accustomed to. Part of me felt sorry for her. We'd shared a life, after all. But another part, the part that had been betrayed and dragged through the mud, couldn't help but think it was a fitting outcome for the choices she'd made. Life's funny, you know? Just when you think you've got it all figured out, it throws you a curveball. But sometimes, those curveballs can lead to a home run. That's what happened when Sarah entered our lives. The kids took to her like fish to water. There was laughter in the house again, real laughter. We'd sit around the dinner table, sharing stories, making plans. It felt like a family, a real family. Sarah had this way of making things feel normal, even when the world outside was anything but. But while we were finding our peace, Julia's world was falling apart. Social media can be brutal, and she was getting the brunt of it. The backlash was fierce. I'd see the comments, the judgments passed by strangers. It was a public shaming of the worst kind. I won't lie. Part of me thought she deserved it, but another part, maybe the fatherly part, felt bad. I knew the impact it was having on her mental health. It's one thing to face consequences, but another to be torn apart by the faceless masses. In the midst of all this, my business was thriving. We were making waves, and people were taking notice. I was awarded for my entrepreneurial spirit, for making a comeback against all odds. Standing there, accepting that award, I looked out and realized how far I'd come. From the depths of despair to a moment of triumph, it was a journey I'd never forget. It was more than an award. It was a validation of my resilience, my refusal to be kept down. The fallout from the scandal was reaching far and wide, and it hit Julia hard when her own parents turned their backs on her. They were traditional, the kind who viewed family and reputation above all else. They couldn't stomach what she'd done, the scandal she'd caused. It was a harsh blow, losing her family over choices she'd made. I felt for the kids. They were caught in the middle of this familial rift, through no fault of their own. As for us, we were moving up, quite literally. I bought a new house, a place where we could start fresh. It was spacious, with a big backyard for the kids, a place where they could grow, where we could make new memories. It was a symbol of our new beginning, a testament to the life we were building together. The day we moved in, I stood at the doorway, watching the kids run around, exploring every nook and cranny, Sarah organizing the kitchen, her laughter mingling with theirs. It felt right, it felt like home. Life's like a road, full of twists and turns. My road was veering towards a sunny horizon while Julia seemed to be stuck in a never-ending storm. I heard through the grapevine that she tried to start her own business, a boutique or something. But it tanked hard. No support, no connections, she'd burned too many bridges. I couldn't help but think it was a grim reminder of how alone she'd made herself. Meanwhile, our kids were thriving. Jack nailed every baseball game, and Lily, my little math whiz, was acing her classes. They'd come home with trophies and certificates, their faces beaming with pride. "Thanks, Dad," they'd say, "for always being there." Those words, let me tell you, they meant everything. It was proof that despite the mess, I was doing something right for them. The news about Julia's health hit me unexpectedly. Stress, loneliness, it was all taking its toll. I saw her once during this time, and the change was stark. The vibrant woman I once knew was now just a shadow, frail and hollow-eyed. Our marriage was long over, but it was hard to see her like that. The mother of my children. Someone I once shared a life with. In the midst of this, something beautiful happened. I proposed to Sarah. It was nothing fancy, just us and a sunset. But when she said yes, it felt like a new chapter opening. We started planning a small wedding, nothing like the extravagant affair I had with Julia. This time, it was about us, about the simplicity of our love. But Julia, she wasn't done yet. She tried to stir up trouble, spreading rumors, trying to drag my name through the mud again. But it didn't stick. People had seen through her, and my reputation was stronger than ever, built on hard work and resilience. Her attempts fell flat, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of finality, like that chapter of my life was truly closing. Life's a journey of ups and downs, and I'd seen my fair share of both. But that day, the day Sarah and I got married, was definitely one of the UPS. It was a modest affair, just close friends and family, but it was perfect. The local media caught wind of it and gave us a little shout-out. Positive stuff, eh? Local businessman finds love again, kind of story. It felt good, not gonna lie. The kids were beaming, Sarah was radiant, and me? I was probably the happiest guy on the planet. Meanwhile, Julia was on a different path. I heard from mutual friends that she was doing some soul searching, finally coming to grips with the havoc she'd wreaked. I guess solitude does that to you, makes you reflect on your life, your choices. I can't say I didn't feel a twinge of something. Not quite sympathy, but something close. We'd shared a life, after all. But that chapter was closed, and I had turned the page. Sarah and I went on our honeymoon, a cozy little getaway. We celebrated not just our marriage, but everything we'd overcome to be together. There were moments during those quiet evenings, watching the sunset, when I'd think about the roller coaster my life had been. From the depths of despair to finding love and happiness again, it was surreal. Sarah, with her unwavering support and love, had been my rock through it all. Back in town, Julia was reaching out to old friends, trying to mend fences. But it wasn't going well. Too many bridges had been burned, too many words had been said. It's tough, watching someone who was once a vital part of your world become an outcast. But we reap what we sow, and Julia was learning that the hard way. On the business front, things were booming. We were expanding internationally, breaking into markets I'd only dreamed of a few years back. It was a testament to the hard work and dedication of my team, and to the resilience we'd all shown. We were making waves, and it felt incredible to be leading the charge. It was one of those parent events, and Jack and Lily had to talk about their heroes. To my utter surprise, they both spoke about me, my struggles, my comeback, how I'd always been there for them. Their words, simple yet sincere, struck a chord in me. Amidst all the chaos, I'd managed to be a good dad, and that was worth more than any business success. Julia's descent continued. She was neck-deep in debt, struggling to keep a roof over her head. I heard she'd tried to start a business, write a book, anything to claw her way back. But nothing took off. The book, particularly, was a desperate move. A tell-all about our life, our marriage. But no publisher wanted to touch it. Maybe they saw it for what it was, a last-ditch effort to capitalize on a failed relationship. On my end, things were looking up. I decided to give back, to help others who'd hit rock bottom like I once had. I started a charity foundation focused on rebuilding lives, whether it was through financial aid, counseling, or simply giving a listening ear. It was my way of paying forward the second chance I'd been given. The highlight of this chapter of my life came unexpectedly. A major magazine got wind of my story, the downfall, the comeback, the new family, the charity work. They did a feature on me, calling it an inspiring tale of resilience and redemption. It was surreal, seeing my face on the cover, reading about my journey. I wasn't just a businessman anymore. I was a symbol of hope. As for Julia, she ended up alone. It was a harsh reality that she had to face, the consequences of her choices, the fallout of her actions. It was a sad end to a story that had started with so much promise. But that's the thing about life. It goes on. With my ex and I divorced after 3 years of marriage. The first time I met my ex-wife was at a baking fest where she and her friends came to support one of the competitors, who was also her friend, and I happened to be her friend's cousin, the competitor. We got along well from that first night, but I didn't think we would see each other after that. Not until she coincidentally popped up on my Facebook's People You May Know, and I sent her a friend request. Luckily for both of us, she was online that evening, and she accepted my friend's request that night, and we started talking. From our conversation, I found out that she was a fresh college graduate, and she was job hunting at the moment, but she also worked part-time at a restaurant to pay her bills. I was into real estate myself, and my job required that I traveled almost all the time to check out clients' property and meet with clients who wanted to buy or sell too. I told her about myself too, and we seemed to get along. When we met, I had been single for more than 4 years and was looking for a partner, possibly a life partner, but I wasn't looking for the kind of girl who would be with me just because I was doing well financially. I wanted someone who actually loved me, and because of that, I lied about a couple of things I told her while I talked that night. As time passed, we continued to hang out often whenever I was in town, and I fell in love with her as we continued to see each other, and in less than 3 months of always hanging out, I asked her out and she said yes. It was after she said yes to me that I began to open up to her, and this was because I was getting more comfortable with her and being around her. Since I was always barely in town and rented a comfortable apartment, I asked her to move in with me so we could always be together, and she agreed. Right from when we started talking on Facebook, I told my best friend about her and how much I liked her, and he encouraged me to make things work out between us, which it did, and since I was only sometimes in town, I would ask him to occasionally stop by the house on his way back from work and check on her for me. She became my world, and I adored everything about her. Her smile was infectious, bringing life to every room she stepped into. Even my mom, who was selective regarding women, loved her at first sight. After searching for a job for a long time, she could not find one. I asked her to stop hunting and started giving her money monthly. It was equivalent to the salary she would get if she worked, and I even added bonuses every time she made me happy. So, all she did was stay home, hang out with her friends, or do whatever she wanted aside from working. Our intimate life was great, and it was really one of the things I loved about her. When we met new, we explored together, and she always had a way of driving me crazy in bed. While all this happened, I bragged about her to my best friend, and I kept telling him how lucky I was to have met the perfect woman. He even advised me to propose to her, since I was the only bachelor in our circle, and he helped me pick the perfect ring. My wife and I dated for a couple of years before I popped the question, and she said yes. We had a beautiful wedding, and for our honeymoon, we went to a tropical island she had always been crazy about. Our honeymoon was a gift from my fellow realtors, including my best friend, and it was just amazing. Before marriage, we had agreed to not have kids immediately because I understood we would have to pause our lives for a while to raise a child, and I didn't want that. I wanted to enjoy myself with my wife before a child came, so we agreed to start having kids after 3 years, and after she continued taking her birth control pills. The first 2 years of our marriage were great, and I had the best memories from them. We did literally everything together when I was around. We ate, had baths, shopped, and took trips together. We even learned new skills and did our first skydiving together. I ensured that whenever I was at home with my ex-wife, I showered her with gifts and so much love, and we would even go over to my best friend's house for dinner, or he would come over with his family. I loved that the relationship between my wife and best friend was getting more solid, and I loved to see them get along with each other, just like the big, happy family I wanted us to be. I also loved that my best friend's wife and my wife were always together, and they did most of their shopping together. The only difference between me and my best friend was that he stayed out late, and his wife began to suspect that he was seeing someone because he began to neglect her, and he was always on his phone. I didn't really think my best friend was seeing anyone because being a realtor required that he meet all kinds of people, including women. I didn't even ask him about it because I'd been with him since we were children, and I knew he was a one-woman man. Everything was going fine between our two families until one day, my ex-wife and I were at this rich folks party I was invited to, and unfortunately, my battery died there. I had to make an important call for a deal I was about to seal, so I asked my ex-wife to lend me her phone, and she did. She was busy talking to people at the party, so she didn't even notice when I walked to a quiet place. I typed the number on her phone, and to my greatest surprise, the name Sugar popped on her screen. Funnily enough, it was my best friend's number, which made me curious. I knew it was weird for her to save his number that way. Many thoughts ran through my head at that moment, and I was forced to go through her WhatsApp after struggling internally for minutes. I found texts like "I miss you" and "I had fun the last time," which made things more suspicious. After I saw my best friend's number saved as Sugar in my ex-wife's phone, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was happening between them. She was always talking about him, and even when I told her that his wife suspected she was seeing someone, she acted very concerned and kept asking if she knew who the person was. I also wanted to prove myself wrong, so I hired a private investigator to follow her around. In the end, the private investigator followed her for weeks, and indeed, my ex-wife was having an affair with my best friend. The private investigator took pictures of them hanging out at night whenever I traveled. I was always traveling. They went to the movies together, cuddled each other in restaurants, and even spent nights in a hotel. Then he would drop my wife and return back to his wife. I was literally in tears when I saw the pictures and the videos. It was the height of betrayal any man could take. There was nothing I didn't do to make my wife happy, but she betrayed me. So, a few days after I learned the truth, I pretended to travel out of town and notified them about it. I knew they would hang out together that night, and they did. That evening, I waited in the PI's car and watched them as they returned from grocery shopping and walked into my house. I waited for almost 30 minutes outside before I ran into my house. I opened the door, and we caught them on the couch naked. The PI was with me, and he had his phone camera on. When they saw us, they scrambled for their clothes first, and then my ex-wife began to. Everything happened so fast, and I couldn't help but punch my best friend in the face. At the same time, my best friend's wife walked in on us fighting, and she began to yell at him and hit him when she saw him naked. I told her everything I found on the phone before I went into my house and asked her to come over to my house if she wanted to see things for herself. I kicked my wife and best friend out of my house that night, and I posted the video of them I recorded on social media and tagged them. It went viral, but I didn't care. I also sent the video to my former mother-in-law, and she was so embarrassed and disappointed. I contacted a lawyer from the day the PI turned in the evidence, and he helped process the divorce papers, which we divorced months later. My best friend's wife also divorced my best friend, and she won custody of their kids. As a result of that, he became miserable and depressed. After our divorce, my ex-wife dropped by the house several times, begging that I take her back. She had obviously tasted suffering and realized how much I made life easier for her when she was with me. She admitted that they had been dating for almost 2 years, and she did it because my best friend told her I was cheating on her, but I wasn't buying any of her excuses. I threatened that she would pay me back every money she owed if she showed up again, and that was the last time I saw her. I stopped talking with my best friend, and we stopped doing business together. It has been years now, and I have moved on, but I don't think I'll have a best friend or a woman I can trust anytime soon. Opie, what your best friend and wife did to you is devastating. Such people should not be given second chances in your life. They were the two closest people in your life, yet they broke your trust and betrayed you in the worst possible way. I'm also glad you didn't ignore your wife and forgive your best friend, because that would be silly. He also contributed 100% to the betrayal, despite being your childhood friend. You did the right thing by cutting them off. You don't have to keep doing business with your best friend when you can do business with thousands of realtors. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I wish you all the best. Now, let's move on to the second story for today. 28 male, and my ex-girlfriend, 25 female, were a typical example of two lovebirds. I am an Uber driver, and I have been driving for more than 6 years now. Through driving as a part-time job, I could assist myself financially through college and settle things in other areas of my life. My ex-girlfriend and I first met after she ordered a ride, and I was her driver. We only talked a little that day because I had a policy of not engaging young female customers. Otherwise, we would get too close, and they would always expect free rides. But later that night, after I got home and was cleaning my car, I discovered that she had forgotten one of those small-sized mail wallets in my car and had her ID in it. As soon as I saw her ID, I remembered her and called to tell her I found her wallet in my car. From how she responded, it was obvious that she had been looking for the wallet, and she asked if I could help her drop it at her house the next day, and she would pay for the ride. I agreed to that, and the next day, I drove down to her place and returned her wallet. It was late in the evening, and we talked over a can of beer. It was her way of saying thank you, but in the process of talking, we found out that we had so much in common, and I offered to be her personal driver just in case she needed to go somewhere. Long story short, from being her new personal driver, we slowly got closer to each other, and we started going on dates. We were both single at the time, so we didn't have any reason to hold back, and besides, we saw it as only getting to know each other and nothing more. But we didn't know that we would end up sharing the same bed a few times, and from there, we would be in a relationship. We dated for 4 years, and even before our relationship was 6 months old, I had known her parents and the rest of her family members, and she meant mine too. Our families knew we were in a relationship, but they kicked against her moving in with me until we were officially married. So during our 4 years of being together, she could only spend the weekends and sleep over on some nights because her parents insisted that she live with them until I married her out of their home, so we had to respect that. Aside from getting her dream job, she got a promotion in less than 2 years of working with her organization, and this was great news for both of us. The only wrong side was that she had to handle more projects, and she had more workload than she used to. In her organization, there was this guy my ex-girlfriend used to talk about a lot. She talked about how intelligent he was and how the organization was so proud of him after he sealed a mega deal, and all I can remember was that she was so happy when she found out she had been paired with him to work on the project they were assigned. About a month after she started working on this project with her partner, I noticed many things had changed between us. First, she was always too tired to go on a date with me or come over to see me at my apartment like we agreed to twice every week. Also, we used to video call each other every day while working. It either had to be during her break time or mine, but after the project began, she stopped taking my video calls. Instead, she would text back and tell me she was busy and she would call me later, which she never did. When her attitude towards me kept getting worse, I felt it was because I had not made a move yet, especially since we had already dated for 4 years. So I bought a ring. I wanted to propose to her so she wouldn't feel I was unserious. I intended to propose to her on her 26th birthday, but I found something shocking a week before her birthday. On that day, a customer ordered a ride to a fancy restaurant, and after I dropped the customer at the location at around 8 p.m., I saw my ex-girlfriend and her colleague from work coming out of the restaurant with a takeout bag. She was holding the bag, and he wrapped his right arm around her waist like they were a couple, and I felt butterflies in my stomach. They did not see me, and I watched them as they hopped into his car, kissed each other after they got in, and drove away. Immediately they drove off, I followed them. He drove her to the parking lot of a hair salon. They stepped out and kissed, then she got into her car and went home. I was heartbroken, but I had to put myself together, and I could take pictures of them kissing from where I parked my car. After they left for their different destinations, I sat in my car and laughed. It was a combination of tears and laughter, but I laughed the most. I was so pained that she chose to cheat and threw away everything we suffered to build. I had sacrificed a lot of things for her, but it seemed like that wasn't enough for her. The following day was one of the days we agreed she would be sleeping over, and I called her to come over to my place because I needed someone to talk to. I told her I was depressed, and knowing that I had issues of depression in the past, she came over. Throughout that night, I kept brooding over what I had seen, but didn't confront her. Instead, I asked about her project and how everything was at work, as I always did. That night when she slept, I was able to unlock her phone and found chats between her and her colleague. There were chats of them saying things to themselves and even saying ill things about the company they worked for. The sweetest part was the chats contained their nudes, and I took screenshots of everything, sent them to my phone, then cleared the traces. Before she left for work the next day, I asked her if she could leave her new purse. I got it for her, so I could take it to the store and get the same one for my mom as her birthday gift, and she did. When she left for work, I printed many copies of the chat I took from her phone and went to the organization she worked for. Her colleagues already knew me, so they received me well. When I got there, they told me she was having a presentation, so I used the opportunity to share the chats with everyone, and they were all in shock. When she came out, she was concerned that everyone was glaring at her, and when I handed her a copy of the chat, she stood there dumbfounded. Without wasting time, I told her it was over, then asked her for her car key. I gave her my first car, and I walked out on everyone who gathered. She was very embarrassed, and she even tried to follow me. I was satisfied with her public humiliation, and I wanted her to have a taste of what it felt like to commit fully to something and have someone destroy it without thinking. She was eventually fired, as well as her lover, but he cut ties with her because he was already married, and he did not want her to ruin the rest of his life. When her parents found out what she had done, they were very disappointed, and they even tried to call me to work things out, but I blocked their numbers, including hers. I never saw her again, and I hope I never do. I still regret wasting my time, resources, love, and everything I did to make that relationship work. She hurt me so much, and up till now, I still struggle with the thought that every woman out there will treat me the same way she did. OP, a woman who cheats on you once can cheat on you again, and if she could do this after 4 years of being in a relationship, imagine how much more after several years of marriage. Don't let anyone manipulate you into getting back with them. I am very proud of how you handled this situation. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Hey folks, welcome back to my channel Relationship Haven. I hope you all are having a wonderful day or evening. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Now, let's get into today's story. My wife, 28, of 2 years, has done a complete 180 in the past few weeks. She went from someone who is loving, focused on starting a family, and completely trustworthy to someone who has lied, deceived me, and blames me for her infidelity. It all started 3 weeks ago. I was riding high. I thought our relationship was going great. We were talking about getting another dog and our honeymoon plans since the pandemic wrecked the initial plans. Then Friday hit. I could sense something was up and even mentioned it to my mother on the phone. I don't know what's going on. I just have a bad feeling about my wife, I said. Then that night she texted me, I just need some space tonight. I know you won't like it, but please respect my decision. She then proceeded to turn off her phone, and she said she slept in her car in a vacant lot. When she came home, I was understanding but stern that this sort of thing could never happen again. But she had completely changed her mindset on life itself. She wanted no kids and wanted out of the relationship. The most telling thing she said was, I fear that we will cheat on each other in the future. Many things happened since then, including her leaving the state for 2 weeks because she needed space. Last night, I found that she had spent the night at her instructor's house after going to a movie theater. I also found a picture of the two of them. The worst part is I was the one who had encouraged her in this career, and she never would have met the guy if I hadn't introduced them. I have yet to confront her, but I am currently putting all the puzzle pieces together about this whole situation. She is basically blaming me for all these issues that we are suddenly dealing with, saying she doesn't like the way I talk to her, that I'm controlling, and that I call her names. I have done deep soul searching these past few weeks to try and understand what I could have done to cause this, but her accusations are unfounded. I encouraged her to get mental health help, which in her mind equated to calling her names. I stressed the importance of communication when she shut off her phone, but she said that is controlling, even though I didn't stop her from spending 3+ weeks away from home. Finally, she had these recordings of me without my knowledge and thought that they were proof that I mentally abused her. I played these for my counselor, and he disagreed that there was any sort of abuse in the recordings and was actually impressed with how calm and collected I was in the discussion. Anyways, none of these things are excuses for cheating and the way she has been treating me. I guess I am at the investigation stage still, trying to let her make her own choices while I gather the data. It's tough though, and the person I once loved more than anything has completely wrecked our entire life together in 3 short weeks. I am at a loss for words about how I feel right now. I've got a great support system and loving parents, but now I know how heartbreak feels, and I never want to feel this way again. Update. Finally had a discussion with my wife, but she insisted her parents be in the room. We talked, and she was nasty to me and showed not one bit of remorse or empathy even when I broke down and spilled my heart out to her. The next day she went to my house, and I finally was able to be alone with her. I confronted her about the inappropriate relationship, and she again got her parents involved, and her mom defended the affair with ridiculous excuses. Currently no contact with her, but I have seen a change. The shift has happened. I went 180 on her after I found out about the affair, and she has started to flounder. Her parents came to town last Wednesday, and I finally was able to get her to have a discussion with me. I decided against revealing the affair with her parents in the room, but I caught her in multiple lies in our discussion. My tone was calm and very apologetic for the things she accused me of. The discussion was very hurtful, as she essentially said that ever since the day we got married, I hadn't treated her right and she had wanted out. She never mentioned this to me during our entire relationship until now. She continued to accuse me of essentially emotionally abusing her by twisting my words from our previous discussions, and luckily my mother was there. She ended up calling her out on her lies because my mom was in some of those discussions she was referencing. The two biggest things that kept me strong through that discussion were, one, not expecting any sort of reconciliation or remorse, and two, having a plan of attack for the encounter. I wanted to publicly in front of her parents reveal how childish and mentally unfit she was when she was making these wild accusations while protecting my character, and stress to her father the need to get her to a therapist or counselor and have her work on her issues. The discussion ended with my wife storming out of the room with her mother. Her father stayed behind me and my mom. His emotions were genuine and very telling about the whole situation. He sat there, and the first words out of his mouth were a tearful "I'm sorry, man." A father looking for answers as well. He told me that it hurt because he considered me his son, and that he always would. This obviously made me very emotional, as I told him, "I love your daughter, and I just want her to be healthy, but at this point I just need to let her go." I told him about the affair and what I knew, and he understood where I was coming from. I stressed the need for her to have consequences for her actions, as she has had none so far. Even further, I stressed the need for her to see a therapist, and he said he agreed, and that he has been trying to get her to go, but to no avail. Because of my two goals above, even though this discussion was not all peaches, it satisfied what I went there to do, and I actually felt much better knowing that I had a father-in-law who understood what was going on. Then the next day came. I went home from work, and my wife was moving some of her things out of the house. I wanted to be there so that I could make sure she didn't steal anything of mine. I actually fixed a part on her car, and we had a calm talk about her future plans. She told me she was going to keep working for how much time she has left the job. I can't believe they are keeping her around. She said she was going to try and earn her ratings and wanted to become a flight instructor. I asked where she was going to live, and she said an RV park. My parents are going to give me their RV. At that point, I told her I just don't understand why you were doing all this. It doesn't make any sense. She said I'm just so happy at the place where she works. I then asked, I just want to know, are you having an inappropriate relationship with AP? She wouldn't look me in the eye. She said no, of course not. I told her I knew and had evidence. I mentioned a couple of events. What were you doing last Wednesday night? Who do you talk to for 90 minutes at 11 p.m. when you were at a bachelorette party in June? I then showed her the call history, and she actually openly showed me it was AP's number in her phone by typing it out, but she kept deflecting the accusation. I stayed strong and calm and told her it would get easier if she told the truth. I was witnessing a 28-year-old woman acting like a child who was just caught in a lie. The real kicker came when she asked if I wanted to get her parents involved. I questioned why she would do that, but I said okay. Immediately before I even showed any evidence, her mom started making excuses for her daughter. Maybe it was a call, and this was already after you were having problems. Wasn't it? No, it wasn't. I calmly said to her mother, can you look at this objectively and tell me there was no inappropriate relationship going on? Her mom refused to answer and said I was trying to manipulate her into saying something, just like I manipulated her daughter. When they ran out of excuses, all three of them stormed out of my house, and her mom said, I hope you don't treat the next girl like you did my daughter. What a screwed up family dynamic. Her dad said nothing the whole time, but I could see he was absolutely beside himself in dealing with both of them. Eventually, my wife sent a text to me saying AP is one of my very best friends. I was really hurting, and we were separated at the time. No, we weren't. She basically admitted to the cheating. She said she wanted to talk with me about it with her lawyer in the room. I told her that I wouldn't recommend getting lawyers involved, seeing as she had committed multiple felonies by recording me without my consent. I haven't talked to her since Thursday, but the dynamics of the situation have been hugely shifted, and I couldn't have done it without the help of everyone here. This is the last thing I'll mention, and it is probably pretty helpful in terms of where to go next. I noticed Sunday morning she went to church. She hasn't gone with me in a while, but we used to go all the time and then took about 500-mile drive to nowhere and then went back to her place. She hasn't done any suspicious activity either out of caution now or realization of her transgressions. I do actually believe the fact that she didn't have sex, but it doesn't matter because I already have enough info and don't need any more. I have already filed for divorce, and she will be getting served within a week or two. Update. All right, so a big part of my story has been the dog we share. About 2 weeks ago, I let her take care of our dog, and honestly, I just needed a break. I worked full-time, and our dog was really struggling with his separation anxiety, and I was too. Anyways, she recently returned our dog back to me full of fleas and asked if I would watch him again. Of course I said I would, but we had a good conversation that followed this. If you remember from my story, she cheated on me with her flight instructor, and I was financially and educationally supporting her in her flying since I am already a pilot. I had my suspicions that her rationale for cheating was that she began struggling while flying, and her instructor likely said something along the lines of you should pay more so you can fly more often, because she asked me for more money to fly more often. Mind you, she was already flying 3 hours a week, which is around $750 a week. I'm sure when I put my foot down and said it wasn't the right move for our family, she decided she could just sleep her way into free lessons. Anyways, she told me I was controlling, manipulative, and a narcissist for not spending more money so she could achieve her dream. Childish, right? Fast forward to our discussion last Friday. I asked her how flying was going, and she said she quit flying because it was too expensive and she needed to get my mind right. So she gave up on the entire reason she destroyed our marriage, and I have my suspicions that she and AP are not seeing each other anymore either, because she mentioned that she was staying on a pull-out bed in-house with 6 people and 2 dogs. She is staying with one of her coworkers who is 40-something and living with her parents after also recently getting divorced. In 2 short months, my wife went from having an incredible life where she didn't have to work, had a husband that financed her flight training, and our own airplane we could fly whenever, to living in-house with 6 other people and working a job with which she could barely get by. Another dream that she gave up on was becoming a flight attendant at a major airline. She was actually called back to work in July and declined that opportunity. I asked her if she had reconsidered, but I have a lot of friends who work at the airline, and she said she wouldn't feel comfortable if she ran into them while working. She still is without remorse, and I think she still believes I caused her to do all this, but reality is hitting and it is striking her hard. I've encouraged her to seek mental health help without her lashing out at me, and we have agreed to amicably come to a divorce agreement outside of the court, so things are looking up for me in this situation. It was my birthday yesterday, and I am really lucky to have a great family and friends who wish me the best and have been there for me throughout this. The funniest thing WS said to me was, "You can keep all our mutual friends." She knows she effed up big time and is embarrassed to be around people who will know what she did. I move across the country in a little over a month for the military and hopefully will be starting a great new life. I just hope my SDBXW gets the treatment she needs, because she is falling into an unrecoverable tailspin. Update. It's been a while since I've updated everyone, and man, oh man, has my life changed. I ended up moving to California, and I have consistently gotten angrier and angrier at what she did. Now I'm not really blaming her BPD anymore, but more realizing how fallen of a human being she is. After some time in reflection, I came to see how terrible, deceitful, and traumatizing her behavior was to me. But after crying and being sad for a couple of months, I got my airplane back and started doing things I enjoy. I flew across the country with my dad, spent a few days in Vedas with some friends, did some snow skiing, and began a new job. I could finally enjoy life again, and in December a weight was lifted as we finally came to a divorce agreement through mediation. While I'm not ecstatic about having to pay her money, it's a small price to pay to remove her toxicity from my life forever. The biggest surprise came this week. I found out I got selected to start pilot training. I couldn't believe it. I had tried and failed multiple times before, but my perseverance paid off. I don't know what my life has in store next, but I know this relationship/divorce was a major hardship to prepare me for better times ahead. I say all this to hopefully inspire people who are going through hell right now that there's a reason why you're going through it, and eventually life does get better. I can't thank everyone on here enough for the support and encouragement through my toughest days. Opie, as you said, she is not your responsibility anymore. She lost that privilege when she walked out on the marriage. If she is or was in that bad of a mental state, then her first step should have been to come to you or see a therapist. Instead, she looked to outside companions and in the process ruined her marriage. She is now responsible for herself, and that's the choice she made. She has her family and her new guy that can and will take care of her. You stand by your word, meet with her at the local park, let her spend some time with your dog, and that's it. Don't let her get to you during that time. This moment can develop in any direction. Maybe she will be absolutely not interested in you and just wants to see the dog. Maybe she will try to lure you to talk to her. Keep your stance up, keep your answers short, and always keep in mind how she treated you. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's story. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate. I, 42 male, was with my ex, 41 female, for 4 years, from the ages of 27 to 31. In the second year of our relationship, she got pregnant, and I was so happy to be a dad, so excited to give my child everything I didn't have. Later on in the year, we welcomed a beautiful, healthy baby boy. I should preface this a bit more by saying that myself and my ex are both pale Korean, so when my son was born with darker skin, I had some doubts, but told myself that he would gain the features that resembled his mom and me as time passed. I was wrong. Within the first year of his life, I knew that my son wasn't mine. Along with his darker skin, he has hair that defies gravity, while mine and his mom's are straight as needles. He has different facial features than both of us. Despite knowing most of these things within the first year of his life, I decided to stick around and raise him as my own, because I already became attached to him, and vice versa. I, of course, didn't mention that I knew to my ex, and whenever my family would question me about it, I'd say, he's my boy. Of course, the relationship with his mom and I ended, but for other reasons. Despite that, I still stuck around to raise my son. He's a teen now and lives with me 75% of the time, and with his mom the other 25%. It's just what works for us. Last week, I took my son to get his hair cut, as he didn't want to grow out his afro anymore. He went back with his mom shortly afterward, and the day after, I got a call from my ex, telling me she needed to speak with me, and that it was serious. We met up, and she sat me down very dramatically, and proceeded to tell me that my son wasn't my son, and that he was her old coworker's son, and that he was in a very vital stage, where he needed to learn about him and his biological dad's culture and whatnot. I told her that I knew. She looked shocked and confused. I told her that I wasn't stupid, that I knew since the moment he was born, and that I loved him, and if he chooses to meet his bio dad, then I fully support him. She got mad at me, saying, if you knew, you should have said something, and we could have prevented depriving him of his other culture long ago. When I mentioned that she should have told me, she said, I didn't want to hurt you. That conversation ended, and she went on to tell my son everything. He was rightfully upset and called me afterward to pick him up. I told him that I had known and loved him from the beginning. He was upset with me for about a day. Then he came to me and said he wanted to meet his bio dad. I said okay and called his mom. Long story short, bio dad doesn't want to be involved, despite knowing about my son since birth. My son is still rightfully sore about the situation, and my ex is saying it's just as much my fault for not saying anything. Maybe if I did say something, he could have grown up with his real dad and didn't have to go through this, or any of the other things he's experienced. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Okay, so your ex cheated on you, knew that she got pregnant with the guy she cheated on you with, lied to you and your son this whole time, and this is your fault. You seem to be a really loving person, and your ex is most likely taking advantage of your loving nature by placing her grief on you. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Is she seriously trying to blame you right now? There is something mentally askew with her. You literally said that the bio dad knew about your son since day one and wanted nothing to do with him. So, your ex getting mad about depriving your son of his culture and bio dad is crap. Honestly, I think she was hoping for some hallmark moment where the bio dad decided he wanted the teenager, i.e. wanted her still, and she's salty that it's her selfishness, yet again, that caused issues with her son. She hurt him and you, and no one else did. The good old liar's defense play, attempting to obfuscate and excuse their blatant lies by way of dressing them up in a cloak of altruistic intentions. Classic. And now she just wants to spread the anger she's getting from your son because of what she did. She's trying to make you accept some of the blame, when in reality, she's reaping what she sowed. You're awesome for being a dad in this situation. A lot of men would adapt. Exactly, dude. He has a real dad, you. You're his real dad. Being a parent isn't about biology. It's about commitment and love and sacrifice. Good luck to you, and I hope you and your son navigate yourselves through this. My daughter has two of my grandchildren, and she lives in Napa. Last summer, she invited me to spend part of my summer vacation at her home. I thought it would be great, spend time with the family and vineyards, and buy some wine for the new school year. I was all for it. The reality was different, though. She would leave me at home to spend time with the kids, so she could go run errands. Twice she went out for dinner with her husband while I stayed at the house. I told her, clearly, that I wasn't happy with the situation, and she got huffy and said that I'd taken a year off work to help my son take care of his son. This is absolutely true. I did that. I took a sabbatical to help my son, whose wife was crippled in a car accident and was in rehab for a year, learning how to use her body again. I didn't say anything, but the audacity was too much. When my daughter invited me out for the summer, I politely declined and said I had plans. She asked what I was doing, and I truthfully told her that my boyfriend, 53, and I were spending the summer fixing up the house and camping. She said that Napa's more fun and that the kids want to see me. I said I had a week free next month so that she could visit me. She didn't like that idea. Now she isn't talking to me, and I'm okay with it. I'm currently drinking my morning wine and watching my boy toy Power wash the deck. Not the idiot. First, love your vibe and you enjoy that morning wine. Second, you're not free childcare. She should have asked you. She didn't and just assumed. She's an idiot for that. Live your life, queen. Wow, the entitlement is strong with that one, throwing out you helping care for your injured daughter-in-law. Your daughter just needs to woman up and tell you she wants you to come babysit. It sounds like that was the total extent of your last trip. I politely tell her no. You're going on a nice, relaxing vacation, not traveling to her to babysit. If she wants to see you, she can arrange a trip to you when she gets back. I guess I can see this situation from your daughter's perspective. Being a parent can be exhausting, and it's endless. Having support to take a break here or there for doctor's appointments, errands, and date nights is helpful to the parent's mental and emotional well-being. Seeing you actively support her sibling for such an extended period may have created unrealistic expectations. Opie, my advice to you is to try to have a respectful conversation with your daughter to clarify your boundaries on this topic. You seem too comfortable letting your daughter stew in anger over your rejection of her summer plans. Maybe she is blind to the differences between the two situations. Maybe not. How on earth could she be blind to the differences in the situations? Opie did have a respectful conversation with her daughter. When invited back for another vacation, she said no. She had other plans. She offered an alternative, that the daughter come see her. Her daughter responded by not talking to her, not giving a reason, just no longer talking. That's on the daughter. My mom and dad have 3 kids, me, 18 female, and 22 female and male twins. My mom struggled with a host of mental issues. And while she loved us, she was not a good mother or partner at all. When I was 5, my parents broke up. Dad had full custody, but he'd let us stay with our whenever it was safe to do so. Eventually, he met and started dating our new stepmother. She was not the problem. At the time, we saw her as a cool older sister/fun aunt. We liked hanging out with her and all was good. As stepmom and dad's relationship became more serious, my dad started comparing our mom and stepmom. He compared their parenting, her cooking, literally, and everything he could compare he would. At the time, it wasn't an issue. Stepmom herself didn't overstep any boundaries. We still had a relationship with our mom, and our mom liked stepmom. So, all was well. When I was around 13, my mom's health went downhill. And a year later, I lost her. The first year was honestly a blur. But after things started returning to normal, my dad suddenly doubled down even more on the mom competition. My dad would still make remarks about how stepmom was better than our mom. And at one point, he even tried forcing my siblings and me to call stepmom mom. He'd say stuff like, "She's your only mother now." And when mom was alive, it was no big deal. Now that she's gone, it really felt as if she was forcing us to move on from our mom. While this rightfully caused an issue with our dad, my stepmom also became caught up in it. It ruined our relationship with her, as she was our mom's replacement. But we weren't looking to replace our mother. Recently, my sister became pregnant. It was unplanned. She told us right away, but didn't tell stepmom or dad. She lost the baby, and my parents were with her through it all. Stepmom told our dad in private that she felt hurt that my sister felt as if she couldn't tell her with the news of the pregnancy. My dad then got us all together and spent a good 30 minutes yelling at us, calling us cruel and other things. And in this yelling, he was referring to stepmom as our mom. My sister snapped and said stepmom is not our mom, nor did we ask for her to be. Stepmom was upset and cried. He yelled at us some more and started shaming my sister for what she said, calling us rude and ungrateful. I responded that it was his fault that we didn't like stepmom. Had he not spent all these years shoving her down our throats, that maybe we would have seen her as more than just a random girl who was trying to take over our mom's role. He took my words and basically blasted me to family. And now everyone's calling me mean and disrespectful and expecting me to apologize to my dad and basically calling me entitled and ungrateful for all that my dad and stepmom have done for us. So, your sister had a loss and your dad decided this is the best time to have a go at her for not sharing the pregnancy news with her stepmom? What a piece of work. I don't think you said anything wrong here. Well, not the idiot, but wow. That's some drama. What was your father's goal exactly? To shame your sister into apologizing for having a loss and not telling your stepmom? That's stupid. Your sister was in a fragile state. She reached out to her siblings instead of her parents because she trusted you and not your father. I think your father needs to stop trying to guilt you and your siblings into acting like your stepmom is your new mom. You had a mom. You loved her. Faults and all. And you lost her. Your stepmom is not your mom. Your relationship with her might have improved if your father had just backed off, but he chose to butt in. You aren't kids. You don't need to be lectured about mom versus stepmom. I disagree. Everyone's the idiot here except stepmom. Your dad has ruined the relationship by comparing your mom and stepmom. You suck a little for taking it out on your stepmom. You don't say anywhere anything that she's actually done that's been horrible to you at all. Take your anger out on the correct person, your dad. My 18-year-old son, Nikolai, had an oops baby with his longtime girlfriend, Celine, also 18, a few months ago. It has been a long understood fact in our house that if any of my kids have children young, I won't be there to help them. No passing off kids to the granny. No granny can you babysit. No granny can you pay for this or that. None of it. I preached abstinence. Unpopular, I know. My son could have had a great future, but this happened, and now that's all over with. The most help I've given him is discounted rent at our house. Sometimes Celine drops the babies over here when Nikolai isn't working so he can look after them. He basically agreed that whenever she feels tired or overwhelmed, she can bring them here and he'll take care of it. It's a bit loud when they're at my house, but I wear my noise-canceling headphones and get on with my day. The day before yesterday, Celine dropped the babies off for the night. After a couple of hours of being unable to get them to sleep, my son begged me to help him. I told him I'm sorry, but I'm not doing it. If I cave in this once, it'll become a regular thing. He offered to pay me, but that boy's barely making ends meet as it is, so I refused. I told him to try rocking the cradle with his foot, hugged him, and went to bed. Well, the next day when he gets in from work, he's in a terrible mood. I tried to ask him how his day went like normal, but he just flashed me a forced smile and went to his room. I know he's upset. He has 2 jobs and has to work overtime, but he's just gotta face the fact that this is his life now. I've talked to some family members about it because I felt a little guilty, but there are mixed opinions. Some think I'm being too harsh. Others say stick to your guns. Am I the idiot for not helping? You're right. If you help your son, he might think you might help him again. If you show him compassion or treat him like a person, he might someday experience pride or happiness, and that won't do now because he's broken your rule for how to live a good life. Why? If you spend time with your grandchildren, you might even develop a relationship with them. That won't do when it's important they know you think of them as mistakes that ruined your son's life. You are the idiot, Opie. Hey, since preaching abstinence instead of providing education is highly correlated with teen pregnancy, I wonder if your parenting choices are in any way related to your son's choice that you disapprove of. Grandchildren? Don't ask Granny for anything. Granny says those are oops babies. Granny only gives presents and hugs to non-oops babies. Granny only gives presents to babies born in wedlock. I can't imagine charging your child, who's financially struggling and working 2 jobs at 18, a rent. Discounting rent. Huh. With a family like this, he'll get sick from stress. That's just not healthy. Lady, you have a responsible son working 2 jobs and raising twins with his longtime girlfriend. Just because he's had babies younger doesn't mean his life is over. Your son begged you to help him, and you said no. My children know that they can come to me for anything, and I'll do my best to help or support them. You're trying to teach the wrong lessons here. You should be proud of him, right? Like, it seems that since he made a poor choice, Opie no longer needs to parent her child. Do you stop being a mother the moment your child makes a choice that you don't agree with? Do you stop being a mother as soon as things in life don't go your way? Opie is surely showing her child how not to be a parent. I guess that's running in his favor. Don't be like Opie, Nikolai. Raise those babies with love, compassion, and support. My wife and I have 2 sons, Brian and Kevin. Brian has a teen daughter, Aurora. Brian and Aurora live very close to us, spending all their time at our home. Kevin and his family moved in with us and will live with us for a few months. Kevin's has been the one doing all the cooking recently since my wife is sick and unable to cook, and Kevin and I work long hours. Aurora and Brian have dinner with us every night as well. Kevin's wife is a terrible cook. Her food is almost impossible to eat. Aurora is very honest. One day she told her that her cooking sucks. Kevin's wife was offended and told her she could cook if she hated her cooking so much. Aurora agreed, and she's been doing all the cooking. However, Kevin's wife is a picky eater, and each night Aurora makes sure to make a meal that she doesn't eat. This has caused many arguments between them, and Kevin's wife thinks I'm the idiot and should just kick her out and tell her to stop coming over for dinner. So, am I the idiot for not kicking my granddaughter out? Everyone's the idiot here. Okay, Kevin's wife is not a good cook, but she stepped up when needed. Aurora sounds like she weaponized the food so Kevin's wife couldn't eat what she prepared. Not cool, but it sounds like Opie stands behind her on this choice or has not corrected her. Kevin's wife then wants Aurora to get thrown out, an idiot move. While your wife is sick, can't someone step up, an adult? Run-of-the-mill family drama, if you ask me. It's only missing the one sibling in the back thinking they're all nuts. Dear God, your poor wife is trying to heal while all of you play grab butt. I hope she books a resort and leaves you all to figure it out. Sheesh. Opie, you're old enough to be a grandfather, and that should be old enough to navigate this situation. Tell your granddaughter to quit being an idiot and stop cooking things that she knows your daughter-in-law doesn't like. Tell your daughter-in-law and your son that you're doing them a favor by letting them move in for a bit, and they aren't able to dictate who will and won't be in your home, and to grow up because she has hands and can cook her own food if she doesn't like